If we all sing.
The Waimbaji Association Convention 2024, dubbed Twaraise Mission, is here for all of us to come and reason together on the 24th to the 27th of April at the Nyancho Adventist Mission Hospital Church, steered by the invited, skilled and able facilitators Dennis Mauti, Timothy Ongaga, Maureen Okenyi, Benjamin Onsomu and John Ogoi, dissecting the matters in question from 2 p.m. as talking about them is the first step towards a solution. Come on the 2024 Twaraise Mission, singing united.
Or just discuss mental health in general terms, and then just maybe focus on a few of the mental health issues that affect a big proportion of the population, either young people, even older people, and sometimes even young children wanakuwa affected by some of the specific things that I will talk about. Okay, so what is mental health? Tukianzia hapo. What is the definition of mental health? And then what is the difference between mental health and mental illness? Kuna tofauti between mental health and mental illness? Ama tukiona ule mzee mwenye huwa anatembea in town, tunasemaga ule yako na mental health, lakini mimi sina mental health. Ule ni mtu wa mental health. What does that mean? Okay? So mental health consists of a person's psychological, intellectual, spiritual, social and emotional well-being. So nimetaja vitu mingi. I don't know what you've ever imagined mental health is all about, but the definition, the WHO definition of mental health is that a person's wholeness in terms of their psychological well-being, their intellectual well-being, their spiritual well-being, social well-being, and emotional well-being. So all those things are the ones that build together to form what we call mental health. We could call them blocks. Kama blocks za mtoto, when you're building something that is a whole thing, these are the building blocks for mental health. And it's not just the mere absence of mental illness. Okay? Let me just continue. So mental health again consists or is termed as a person's capability to realize their full potential. A person's capability to cope with the stresses of life, and your capability to manage a range of emotions and a range of relationships. So in addition to the definition where those are the building blocks, what are you supposed to do when all these things are okay? And then now it will help us to understand when these things are not okay, what are the things that fall apart. So when the building blocks are fixed together or are fitting together, then the person is able to achieve their full potential. They're able to cope with stresses of life. They're able to manage a range of emotions and a range of relationships. Okay? So that is what mental health is. And I hope it's becoming clearer to us. That mental health sio kitu yenye inakuwaga tu ni watu fulani wako nayo. Mental health is me and you. Is everything about a human being from the time they are born to how they go to school, to how they go to work, to how they relate with their parents and how they relate to their siblings, how they relate to people at work. Everything about a human being is edged on their mental health or their mental well-being. So that is mental health, and I hope it makes sense that they are building blocks to mental health, and there is the functions, so to say, of mental health on what you should be able to do if your mental health is okay or it's you have good mental well-being. Then mental illness, all right? Mental illness is mental health disorders. So when you talk about ukona mental health, that means that someone is saying that you have a good thing. If they say that tukisema yule akona mental health, it's almost saying like that person has a good thing, because mental health is everything. Everyone that has mental health, okay? But mental illness is now when that mental health is injured or it is affected by something and then it is not good. So mental illness is mental health disorders, which are health conditions that negatively affect the way we think, the way we feel, the way we behave, and the way we interact with others. Okay? This helps me to remember that this reminds me of something. There's a day I was just going to a clinic somewhere to see someone, to see a patient. And one of my colleagues, a doctor, a very senior doctor, actually a consultant, because that clinic just had people who are seated and they are calm and they don't look they are sick, they look like people who also have diabetes. If someone walks around here, would you know that they have diabetes? Or if someone walks around here, would you know that some of them, if they don't have a mass, you wouldn't know if they have cancer or not. So everyone was there, they were like, oh doc, kumbe patients wako pia wanaweza kuwa tu wamekaa hapa na hatujui. So people imagine that mental illness ni ile yenye nilikuwa nakwambia ule mzee mwenye anatembea huko nje na makaratasi ama mwenye anatoa manguo kwa barabara. Okay, that is part of it, but that's not entirely mental illness. Mental illness is any condition that affects the way you feel, the way you think, the way you behave, and the way you interact with others. Okay? Unaweza kuwa umetoka nyumbani na umegombana na watu nyumbani, and that can be an aspect of how you're interacting with others. Hata kama hujatoa manguo, your mental health may not be okay. Sawa? Alright. So as I've said, mental illness are mental disorders. And I wish I could have shown you this for you. It's very nice. It usually helps me to bring the picture, okay, of what are mental disorders, where are they coming from, and where do they reside in the body, okay? So at the end of the day, what I usually tell people to remember is that mental disorders are disorders of the brain. Your mental functions are directed by the brain. They are not directed by the heart. In as much as we keep on telling people, follow your own heart, I don't know, we attribute a lot of things, and we attribute our emotions to the heart. But as someone said, I don't know kama ni Mandago alisema, wacha roho ifanye kazi yake ya kupiga damu. Roho kazi yake sio emotions, sio kukatch feelings, kazi ya roho ni kupiga damu. So your brain is what is responsible or is in charge of your emotions. Your brain is in charge of how you think and how you execute things in life, okay? Your brain is in charge of your behavior. Your brain is in charge of even perceptions. I usually ask people or patients who come to me or relatives, when they come to me and they're wondering, why is this person, mbona anaona simba inapita hapa, mbona anasikia watu wakimuongelesha na anaona watu na anatoroka na anaenda, kazi ya watu ni kumkimbiza, kumshika. Why is that person seeing that? And then I take them back to biology. When someone who has never seen, akifungua macho na ni angalie hii kitu, atasema ni nini? Would they know what it is? But you ukiangalia hivi, you know what it is. So what organ of your body has told you what this is? Is it your eyes? It is your brain. So, in as much as your eyes see, it is the brain that recognizes. It's the brain that interprets what the eyes see. So that is perception. In as much as it is your ears that are hearing, it is your brain that tells you that is Timothy's voice. That is a bird singing, and it is not Timothy at the door. That is a car passing, it is not a bicycle. It is your brain that is actually hearing. In the background, it is the brain that has the function of hearing, or the ears are working together with the brain. So that's what happens with people when they are sick. When the brain is sick, it will hear things that are not there. When the brain is sick, it will see things that are not there. When the brain is sick, it will think things that are not normal. Okay? It will make you behave in a way that is abnormal. Sawa? Sasa nimemaliza my lecture. See what that is mental health. Ninaweza enda nyumbani. Okay? So in those terms, then we come up with a whole list of mental illnesses that I will not even mention. But as I was saying, I will talk about a few that we were even asking around. What would you like to hear about mental health? Because inaweza kuwa a very wide topic that we can discuss. So when you hear mental illnesses, you'll hear us talking of things called schizophrenia. You'll hear us talking about depression. You'll hear us talking about bipolar, anxiety, personality disorders. All those are mental disorders because they are problems that have come about because the brain is sick. Okay? Then one other thing that people usually ask about mental health or mental illness, Already I've talked about mental health, and mental health is actually a good thing. Is when everything is working okay, then you have a good mental health, or you have good mental well-being. Mental illness, where do they come from? As much as I've already said that mental disorders are brain disorders, what is it that makes this brain become sick? That is one of the most common things that people, even medics. The other day I was in another hospital and was treating a patient with a certain illness, and one of the nurses was asking me, so doc, ni nini imefanya huyu mtu akakona hii ugonjwa saa hizi? And I was like, this is a nurse asking me where this illness is coming from. What about the people who are out there? Yeah? And I'm like, si ulipitia psychiatry nursing. Amukufunzwa where the mental illnesses come from. So anyway, so mental disorders, we look at mental health or mental well-being as a tree or as a plant. Okay, so your mental well-being is a tree. And there are roots. And then there's the branches. There's things that you cannot see. And then there are those things that you can see. What you can see is what the person manifests. A person who is usually happy, a person who is usually jovial, a person who interacts well with other people, a person who is intelligent, a person who passes their exams. That's what you can see. But what are the roots? Okay? What made that person become who they are? So there are roots of mental illness. And we divide them into three. And there could be many others that maybe we will discover as we go on researching, doing a lot of research with mental illness. But basically we divide the roots of mental, or the causes or the factors that lead to mental illness into three. So we have number one, biological factors. Second root or second thing that might lead to mental illness is psychological factors. And the third one is social factors. So those are the things that, if the root is rotten in terms of the biology of the brain, that tree will show, we will see the sickness. We will see the leaves in a car brown, ziko na vidudu and whatever else we see when we see a sick plant. If your psychological well-being is not okay, all right, or is sick, or has some issues, or how you live your life psychologically is affected, then it will bring about a mental illness. And if the social life of that person has problems, or there's injury to the social well-being of that person, how the environment deals with them and how they deal with the environment, those are the things that will bring about mental illness. So there's biological, psychological, and social. So biological, we usually say now in biology, now there's the biochemistry of the brain, there's the anatomy of the brain itself, there's the physiology of the brain, and then there's genetics. Okay, so in genetics, that is why you will see that a certain mental illness will run in a certain family, because there's a genetic component of the way the brain is formed. Just the same way when you are born, utakuwa na masikio inafanana na babu yako mwenye alikufa 100 years ago. Okay, maybe babu akufa, but maybe hata wakati ulikuwa unazaliwa that babu was not alive, but you were born with the same exact years like that babu. Why? Is it because of, okay, as people usually believe that mental illness is because of uchawi, and must be someone has done some spiritual thing? Or is it because of spiritual things that you have ears that look like your grandfather's? No, it's because there's genetics. There's the DNA that flows from your grandfather to your father to yourself. Okay, so there's also the genetics of how mental illness or mental disorders, or the errors in the brain that cause mental illness, they also pass on. They get passed on to the generations. Just like what is it called? Just like we have diabetes is a genetic illness, and many other genetic illnesses. Then psychological factors. For psychological factors, what I can say to understand psychological factors is the personality. And that's why you heard us talking, when I mentioned mental illnesses, I talked about personality disorders. Psychological factors, I usually try to understand them or describe them as a person's personality and a person's coping mechanisms, which are inbuilt, okay? Although they can be affected by the area where they live in, the family they live in, the kind of person who teaches them, who they look up to affects your personality or influences your personality, but it's generally inbuilt. Like when you look, I don't know whether any of you are parents, or even if you are older siblings, if you have or if your siblings and you've seen your sisters or your brother's children, if you look at them even from when they are 2 years old, when they are 3 years old, they are all different. There's one who will love ugali, the other one will love chapati. Kuna mwenye atapenda kucheza na kurukaruka, lakini mwingine tu ni mpole, and that's their personality. That's how they are built to deal with life or to go through life. So psychological factors are usually, so it's a person's personality and a person's coping mechanisms. When a child's toy gets lost, or when, let me see, I'm trying to look for something, but maybe we can say in terms of adults, like now if a child is changed schools, if they had to move from one town to another and the child had to move from one school to another, there's a child who that will affect completely. Atakuwa itamdisturb na atakosa kuperform in that school, and you have to talk to that child, and that how they cope with that situation is part of their mental well-being or their mental problem. And another child will just be happily okay, and they will move to another town and they are okay, and that is how they cope with life, that nothing really bothers them for one reason or another, and that is psychological factors. Then social factors is the environment and life events that we go through, the environment that you live in, the family that you grow up in, whether it is a peaceful family, whether it's chaotic, whether there is a lot of anger, or whether there's joy and happiness, how you are embraced, how you are accepted in that family, the schools that you go to, how the teachers treat you and how they take care of you or they don't take care of you, the job that you work in, all those environments are social factors that we live in. And life events, unfortunately, if a parent dies, or even experiencing a road traffic accident is a life event. Losing a job is a life event, and how it affects you. And those are some of the social factors that can be contributing to having mental well-being or having a mental illness. Okay, so I will talk briefly about depression. Or maybe even before I talk about depression, let me go through something that is simpler, because I saw that was what had been said, and then I'll move on from depression. I'll move on from stress to anxiety to depression, or I'll just go from stress to depression, because I'm seeing this one is a bit fun. All right, so there's a difference between stress and having a mental illness or having a mental disorder. Stress is normal. Stress is very normal for everyone. And even as I was saying now, like if for instance that child whose parents moved to a different town and they have to move schools, that is a stressful situation for that child, and that is normal. And for them to be stressed about it is normal. Though there may be another child who's not stressed about it. And just because another child, or if you find there are even maybe 3 children, moja kwa class 1, mwingine kwa class 2, mwingine kwa class 5, and you find that the one who's in class 5 is stressed, or the one in class 1 is stressed and the other ones are not stressed, and then you start making noise at them. Mbona unakuwa stressed? Mbona hao wengine hawakuwa stressed? Mbona unasumbua? But it's just a normal life situation to be stressed. Like something has happened, maybe you didn't anticipate it. Sometimes you even anticipate it, but it will cause you stress. So stress is normal. And when something stressful happens, like for instance when you were a child na upoteze pencil, or you used to carry a pencil and a rubber, or a biro and a rubber in our pockets. Na unatembea tu vizuri, umekimbia shuleni, then unafika unapata ilianguka njiani na hakuna mwenye unaweza omba. That will be a stressful situation. So it will make you unhappy. When you find things that are stressful, there are things that make us unhappy. There are things that make us disappointed. Someone will disappoint you and you're like, seriously? That is a stressful situation. Something that makes you disgruntled, okay? Like taxes being increased left, right, and center. It will stress you. But stress is normal. But sometimes the stress can be overwhelming, or it can go beyond just something that stresses you. And this even reminds me, I hope this one will not be too technical, but I was teaching some medical students about this, and it helped me to remember how we are built as human beings. God has made us to have balance, okay? That life will have its ups and downs, okay? So when stressful things happen, or when you encounter a stimulus, we call it a stimulus, or something that unakutana now that is stressful, you'll be stressed. Or kama mtu akikutukana kwa kitu mbaya, unasikia mtu amenijamisha. But usually when you think about yourself when something has stressed you, hizo emotions zitapanda and you'll feel something in your heart, yenyewe tunasema in our heart, but it's because the brain has chemicals that it has sent to certain organs in the body, and then those chemicals release adrenaline and noradrenaline, and then that noradrenaline makes your heart pump, and there's a lot of blood flowing in your hands, and you feel like ukiniwekelea fivefold ministry tu hivi. So you feel those things, yeah? But after a while, or when you just tell yourself, let me just calm down. Wacha nisi respond. Let me take a walk. Let me do something else. As you're taking that walk, your body balances, or your body calms down. And that is how the human body is made. That you should be able to balance. You call it homeostasis. You should be able to come back to normalcy. Even if something may stress, you feel like, I can't even believe these are the kind of leaders that we chose. Unajiambia anyway, ni life. It helps you to calm down. So your body or your brain is made to function that things will come at you and you will respond in a certain way. But the same way you are responding in a certain way and those chemicals are very high, when they get back to the brain, to a certain part of the brain, it tells you, these chemicals are too many. Let us reduce them. Now sometimes even without you doing anything, you find yourself, you've calmed down. That is the normal way the body should function. But sometimes, now when those things have happened, you find your body is not able to come back to a balance. It's not able to come back to a normal state, that you just continue being angry, you just continue being anxious, and you're just like, I don't know what to do, nasikia tu, I can't settle down, and it's maybe even hours later after that thing has happened, or days later, or months later, you're still stressed. So when that stress is overwhelming, it's when now it becomes a psychological problem, or when that stress is stretched. My friend used to say that stress is like a rubber band, and it can stretch up to a certain point, and if you let it go, it bounces back to the normal size. And that is how life keeps on doing to us. That to stretch kidogo tu unapata bounce back. But the moment you stretch that rubber band until it cuts, it snaps, now that is a psychological problem. It can either be a psychological problem or a mental disorder. So when we have a mental or psychological problem, someone becomes demoralized, someone becomes disengaged, they become disenfranchised, they have low mood, they have anxious feelings, and many things that are not pleasant to that person or even other people around them might be seeing huyu mtu hayuko sawa. Then if those psychological problems extend or they could keep on growing, then they become a mental disorder. A mental disorder like now, depression. Okay, so depression, what is depression? Depression is a mood disorder. Okay, it's a mood disorder that is characterized by prolonged feelings of sadness. Okay, feelings of sadness, feeling low, lack of happiness, lack of enjoyment. Those are the characteristics of depression. Okay, so it's a mood disorder that is characterized by prolonged feelings, a prolonged period of where you're feeling sad, and you're feeling hopeless, you're feeling unhappy most of the time, or most days, and for many days. So most of the features of depression includes excessive sadness, as I've already said, hopelessness, feeling guilty, even if you've not done something bad, or even if you do something small that is bad, kama for example, uangushe kikombe nyumbani imevunjika, you feel guilty about it, and it makes you feel bad, and you feel like you've done a very bad thing, you even want to run away from home, and it was a slight thing, so it makes excessive guilt. It makes someone to have excessive guilt. There's lots of pleasure in things that someone used to enjoy. And one of the people I've ever seen, or one of the patients I used to see somewhere, used to tell me that I feel numb. I feel nothing excites me, even if it's a bar of chocolate, or if you buy for them, if they used to enjoy ice cream, hata akiona your ice cream, it doesn't make them feel anything. Or in any of the things that people, if someone used to enjoy watching football or play football, hata ukimwambia twende tukacheze na anaona watu wanacheza, like, I don't know what those guys are doing. That's just nonsense. They'd rather just go and sit, and you wonder why they have changed. Okay, so those are some of the symptoms of depression, that they lose interest in things that they used to enjoy. Then there's symptoms of persistent physical complaints. Okay, so people will have persistent headaches, people will have persistent stomach aches, they'll have persistent fatigue, and these are the people who keep coming to such a facility with symptoms that look like they are physical illness, but they are not physical illness. Hata akipimwa hakuna malaria, hakuna typhoid, hakuna brucella, hakuna nini, nothing is positive, but they are sick. They feel like they are sick, they feel like they are in pain. So that could be a feature that they could be having depression, because now the brain is so overwhelmed or it's so sick. The only way it can tell you that it is sick is presenting, is bringing up physical illness that is actually not there. So difficult to explain and persistent physical complaints. Another feature of depression is decreased functioning at home, at work, or at school, or even with peers or with friends. So people who start withdrawing, okay? When they are in their home setting with other people, they used to enjoy coming to dinner with the rest of the family. Now they don't want to eat dinner with people. They'd rather take their dinner and eat in their room quietly, don't want to talk to anyone, or they would rather wait for everyone to eat dinner and go to sleep. Ndio anatokelezea, anakula hapo peke yake, doesn't want to talk to people, is just withdrawing and is very sad and is not functioning. If it's at work, they don't even have the energy to go to work. Anaamka asubuhi, anajaribu tu kujikokota kutoka kwa bed, they can't, they lack motivation and they lack the strength to they want to, and they know they must to go to work, and especially if they have to depend on that work to earn an income to feed their children, but they are unable because they are depressed. The disease has really suppressed them or oppressed them. Okay, so they're not able to function at work, they're not able to function at school. The children in school start failing exams. They used to do so well. They can't study, they can't even concentrate. Even when they're studying, they're looking at the book. Those words look like they're just animations just jumping around. Okay, maybe if they're jumping around, that's a psychotic. But they look at the book, but they're not understanding anything because their concentration has also been interfered with, and they're not able to comprehend what they are being taught. They don't have the psyche and the motivation that they used to have to go to school, and they start failing their exams. Then another feature of depression is having thoughts of death or thoughts of suicide, or even engaging in suicidal behavior. Those are symptoms of depression. Okay, and this come about from the feelings of hopelessness, feeling like life has come to an end, like life has no meaning, there's nothing to enjoy in life anymore, so what's the point of living? Or sometimes it could be just being overwhelmed and feeling like they're not able to do what they're expected to do. If it's a man, they're not able to provide for their family, they're not able to do this, they're not able to do that, so they feel like it's not worth it anymore. So they might have the thoughts of death, I would rather be dead, or they even try to engage in a behavior to unalive themselves. Okay, so those are the symptoms or the features of depression. The other one that I will talk about is anxiety. Okay, I have a few more minutes. Okay, so anxiety is very related to stress, as I said earlier. Stress and anxiety, sometimes they might be synonymous, because anxiety is also normal. Being anxious or being edgy or being just unsettled about something is normal, and it's a protecting mechanism that the God has given us, or the brain develops so that it can protect you from certain things, such that if a rock just came down falling onto this roof, and it's falling down and it's going to injure some of us, it's anxiety that will help you to respond to that danger, what we call fight or flight. Okay. Yes. Yeah, anxiety is normal, and it's often a healthy emotion to respond to something that you imagine would be dangerous, or is actually a dangerous thing, or it is a threatening thing. So that when it comes about, that anxiety, as I was saying, it will surge certain chemicals and hormones in your body, and it will tell you it's time to run. Or if it is a man and it's something that is coming at you, you decide, even ladies also respond like this because we are human, you decide this something is dangerous to my being alive, and I'm going to fight. Okay, I'm not going to allow it to interfere with my being alive, and you fight or you protect yourself from that thing. So that is anxiety, right? And anxiety is characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes as well. Anxiety can cause distress, but it's not always a medical condition. Sawa. So when someone is having an anxiety disorder, it is characterized by excessive fear. Now this being anxious or being edgy when something is happening, or like normal anxiety is when you're about to do an exam or 2 weeks before the exam, you become so anxious and you're like, what questions would they give? Some people even think that when someone starts actually having symptoms of mental illness, itaisha tu. Ama akitibiwa, they feel like when ametibiwa na dawa zimefanya kazi the first 1 or 2 months, or they imagine, niliwaambia tu ni stage na inaisha. Unfortunately, many mental illnesses are chronic, just like diabetes, hypertension, and many chronic illnesses that we know. Mental illnesses are chronic and relapsing, and many of them will require lifelong treatment. Once they start, it's unfortunate that many of them will be our friends at the hospital or at the clinics that we have. Okay. Then another one is people with mental disorders are violent. Is that true? People with mental illness or disorders are violent. Some, but not all. As I told you, I have many clients that will sit down in a sitting like this, and they will go home and nobody will ever know that they have a mental illness. Okay, like someone with depression, someone who's so suppressed, will they be violent? In that, okay, actually, what this statement says that people with mental illness are more likely to be the victims of violence. Okay, for instance, huyo mwenye ameona hapa amewaangalia pia akaona ni masimba, akaanza kukimbia kutoroka huko. Most likely, okay, someone was telling me they're actually a patient that I saw yesterday. Alifika mahali kwa hospitali, gate ya hospitali, sijui aliona nini. Then he just kachomoka kutoka kwa motorbike akaanza kukimbia. So people started chasing him thinking he was a thief. So he's more likely to suffer violence than someone who's, because now he was running and people were like, mbona anakimbia kwani ameiba nini? And if someone says mwizi, they will just chase after him and they will burn him, and nobody knew why he was running away. So they're not always violent, but sometimes they are at risk of they are most likely to be victims of violence, like people with intellectual disabilities. Wale tunasemaga akili punguani, those are the girls wenye wakitembea hapa kwa town. Mwanaume mmoja tu ako na akili zake timamu, yeye ndio atashika mtu ambaye hana akili nzuri na amue kufanya vitu ambavyo sio vizuri. So we need to look out for them and protect them in the society. Then people with mental illness don't get better. This is another myth that people have out there, and maybe people used to have before they had the information that if someone akipata ugonjwa wa akili ama akichizi ama akikuwa mwenda wazimu ama kama hapa Kisimu nasema amekuwa ebarimu, wanafanyiwa nini huko kwa village? Wanafungiwa kwa sababu everybody imagines that sasa hiyo ni mwisho yake, si ndio? That they'll never get better, ama kama ni mtu alimroga, huyo mwenye alimroga alikufa na hakuna vile tutaenda kupata mwenye alimroga. But when we remember, or when we teach people that it's actually a mental illness, it's just the brain becoming sick, just like any other organ. I tell people the brain gets sick just the way a pancreas will get sick. Just like the kidneys will get sick, the brain can get sick. So mental disorders are illnesses or health disorders, and they can be treated. And how are they treated? Okay, this is where we'll finish. How do we treat mental disorders? We treat mental disorders using the same 3 pillars or the 3 roots that we talked about. So if we have researched and tukaona hii mti imeoza kwa hii root, those are the roots that we will treat, so that we make sure that the tree is healthy up there. So biological problems are treated with biological treatment, and that means medication. They will have to swallow treatment that will go into their brain and balance those chemicals that are there. Psychological treatment. Psychological problems will be treated with psychological treatment and interventions, which is psychotherapy, or some people like to call it talk therapy. Sio kumuongelesha tu ama kumwambia utakuwa tu sawa. These 2 persons that I came with, the lady and the gentleman, they have been taught, they have schooled. They have gone to school for many years to learn how to talk to someone with a mental illness, to talk to their brain, not just talk to the person, to talk to their brain, to help their brain heal or their brain overcome a lot of these mental disorders. Sio tukumwambia hapana, usijali, utakuwa tu sawa, wewe enda tu nyumbani, ama it's not just simple talk. It's talk therapy, yes, but it's not just talking and telling them wewe ongea tu na mtu na utakuwa sawa. But even that talking, that a lot of the people with mental illness, them actually verbalizing and pouring out the things that they are going through is actually therapy in itself. Okay, we usually say that a problem shared is a problem half solved. So that talking itself is actually therapy, but there's more than just talking. There's techniques that they employ to help this person get better. So the psychological issues are treated with psychological treatment. Then the social issues also have social treatment, which usually combine with psychological, and we call them psychosocial interventions. Okay, and you remember mental illness now, especially that we are in a church setting. There was a mental health. There was a definition of mental health that included what and what. Nione kama mlikuwa students wazuri. Mental health ilikuwa na building blocks gani? Emotional, spiritual. Mlikumbuka tu spiritual health, spiritual, psychological, social, intellectual. Okay, so spiritual is a building block of mental well-being. So spiritual interventions are also important, as Moses was saying. Even singing, yeah, we even do things, we remind them, not teach them, because they already know how to sing, but we remind them. Just being in a group of singing people, or having dance classes, is healing to the mind. Exercise, dance, things that we take for granted or we even forget that are important. They are important. They are social interventions that we can do that can help that person get better. And even community interventions. What kind of communities are we? Okay, what kind of families are we? Are we the families that are propagating or triggering people to have mental illnesses? Or are we the families that are healing and accommodating and encouraging? Yep, so that is it. I think I will not go into that. I just wanted to summarize it and allow us to engage with what we've brought to you, so that we have a discussion. And allow maybe someone to come and moderate a question and answer.
Do we have any questions? How do you want us to go around questions? Yes, we have one here. Any other? To collect zote zikuwe answered once, because I think our next guest is...
I'd love to ask a question around issues to do with mental disorders, mental illness. Is it possible that someone with mental illness can actually do good things? Maybe they were not doing good things usually. So mtu akianza kufanya vitu mzuri, anaweza kuwa develop mental illness. So is it a sign of mental illness kwamba ameanza kufanya vitu mzuri na sikuwa mtu mzuri usually?
Kama amepona.
My question is, can drugs cause, like the Wajakoya weed?
Can drugs be a trigger or cause for mental?
That people might do that. Okay.
I think that's why you're in this field, for helping me out. So if you cannot speak it out, write down. So as she answers this too, try to see I have received your question.
My colleagues also to add on. Yes, it's possible that someone who didn't used to do certain things that seem good, when they get a mental illness, they start doing those things. Okay? For instance, someone who was not very generous. Then when they get a certain illness called bipolar, they get mania. Then that day they go and withdraw their whole salary, anakuja anabondesha watu wote. Anawaambia sasa leo kunyweni soda. Kunyweni soda, kuleni mandazi. Kuleni, as in, but you're not realizing that it's a mental illness. They are being what we call being excessive, okay, or indulging in excessive activities. So it's possible you might be thinking that, hey, as in he has become a good person, who makes it a sign of mental illness, but not all the time. As he said, maybe it's, sometimes even developing good behavior can be the fact that they have been treated. So it's very subjective. It will depend on what it is they are doing. If someone used to be very violent and then now they are kind and cooperative, that means that they've probably been given some form of treatment and they are becoming better. And I did not go into substance use disorders because it will take another whole time. I wanted to focus on just a few things. Yes, drugs definitely cause mental illness, and that is the biological part of it, because they'll go into the brain, they'll mess up the neurotransmitters or the chemicals in the brain and cause a mental illness. Okay, and sometimes people with mental illness actually try to use drugs. Okay, so someone who's using drugs, you'd want to be very careful and ask yourself why are they doing that. And it's not only telling them to stop using that drug. Ama kumchapa viboko, like now doing rehab. Rehab kuambia mtu awachane na madawa, you want to ask yourself, why did they start using these drugs? Most people, of course, it's recreational peer pressure, and then when they continue using those drugs, then they mess up with their brain, and because they get a condition we call drug-induced psychosis, either alcohol-induced psychosis or even alcohol-induced mood disorder like depression and the bipolar mentioned. So they can get a number of mental disorders from the drugs. But then again, there are some people who already, when they are having certain mental disorders, they will start using those drugs. Okay? So ukimwambia awache kutumia hizo drugs but you're not treating the mental disorder, you don't treat the problem at the end of the day. So you have to actually treat either the problem that brought about the drug use, and even when they have been using the drugs, you need to treat the mental disorder that came about from the drugs so that you can be able actually to treat the person comprehensively, and it's usually more successful to take them out of the drugs when you also consider the mental issue that comes about with the drugs.
Weza yote sifani kwako, wewe weza yote, imani yako imekuponya. Yesu kamwambia mwanamke aliyesumbuka kweli kwa miaka mingi bila kupata msaidizi, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote. Taja Bwana ungali, taja Bwana ungali, yeye ndiye ngome maishani mwako, maadui wanapokusonga, takukitia na majeshi yake mwenyewe, yeye ndiye kinga kweli wa vyote. Taja Bwana ungali, taja Bwana ungali, yeye ndiye ngome maishani mwako, maadui wanapokusonga, takukitia na majeshi yake mwenyewe, yeye ndiye kinga kweli wa vyote. Imani yako imekuponya. Yesu kamwambia mwanamke aliyesumbuka kweli kwa miaka mingi bila kupata msaidizi, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote, imani yako imekuponya. Yesu kamwambia mwanamke aliyesumbuka kweli kwa miaka mingi bila kupata msaidizi, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote. Imani yako imekuponya. Yesu kamwambia mwanamke aliyesumbuka kweli kwa miaka mingi bila kupata msaidizi, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote, imani yako imekuponya. Yesu kamwambia mwanamke aliyesumbuka kweli kwa miaka mingi bila kupata msaidizi, sifani kwako, wewe waweza yote. Yesu kamwambia mwanamke aliyesumbuka kweli kwa miaka mingi bila kupata msaidizi, sifa ni kwako, wewe waweza yote. Sifa ni kwako, wewe waweza yote.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity and this moment as we shall be sharing a little bit. We ask that you give us the guidance of the Spirit, that we may be able to understand the task that is before us. For this our prayer, for we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. You will forgive my voice. I've been in a crusade and I've really spoken. So the voice has a problem. It's scratchy. But after some time, the more I speak, it starts to become finer. I want to briefly just lay a foundation of what we're going to talk about today, tomorrow, and on Friday. And maybe I'll request the organizers to organize for some few minutes on Sabbath for a reason that I know best. Who cares about Christian standards anyway? That is what I want us to briefly speak about here, the power of music and Christian standards. Now, for purposes of what we're going to study, I would let me first introduce myself. I'm Mauti Dennis. I just come from town. I forgot to thank the dogs that were here. I think Timothy, you will do. They have done a marvelous thing. I'm informed. Yeah, they have opened my. I realize also have a problem, which needs a lot of support. Yeah, so we'll read the book of John chapter 4 verse 24 very fast. I love using Swahili, but that does not mean that I'm not good in English. So, but I love Swahili more. So if I throw some few words in Swahili, I hope I shall have not done anything bad. Verse 24 says, let me pick up from verse 23. It says, lakini saa inakuja, nayo sasa ipo, ambayo wamwabudu halisi watamwabudu Baba katika roho na kweli, kwa maana Baba anawatafuta watu kama hao wamwabudu. Then verse 24, Mungu ni roho. Mungu ni roho, na wao wamwabuduo yeye imewapasa kumwabudu katika roho na katika kweli. So that is where we shall premise our study on that verse, and I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse number 31. You write, and then you will look at it. So the organizers gave me a task, and I believe they gave me that task because they believed I can go and research extensively on that topic, so that we can be of help to each other and to one another. So let me lay down what we're going to look at today, tomorrow, and on Friday. Number one is in the course of my my findings, I noted the following one: that it is not wrong to use musical instruments in worship service. You did hear that? It is not wrong to use any musical instrument in worship service. However, I found out that musicians can use instruments in a way that is spiritually destructive. While it is not wrong to use any musical instrument in worship, musicians use instruments in a way that is spiritually destructive. The way in which instruments are used determines the quality of the music. The way in which the instruments are used determines the quality of the music. So any instrument can be used to sing, to make music. You can even use a trumpet to sing hymns. You can use a drum to sing hymns. You can use a kayamba. You can use the chinchigiri, the shackles. To what we should be looking at is how, not which instrument, but how do you use it. Then the second thing that I found out in the course of my research is that there is a clear distinction. There is a clear distinction between sacred music and secular music. There's a clear distinction between sacred music and secular music. So, and these two should not mingle. Are we together? So these two should not mingle. Actually, if there was a mingling, then we couldn't have had the two. Then it would have been one. So there is that clear distinction. The sacred, you cannot mingle the sacred with the common. So the use of secular music, while sometimes it's good, is inappropriate in church. While you can play a Christian song in a bar, but you cannot play Madilu system in a church. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so we should know which is which and what should be played where. So secular music is inappropriate where? In church. There are some secular music that are very, very informative. They're not just meant to entertain, they're meant to educate. And for example, if somebody tells you uvivu ni adui mkubwa kwa ujenzi wa taifa, you know, that's a very good song, but it's not a Christian song. It's not sacred. But however good it may sound, you cannot play it in church. That's what I'm saying. Another thing that we will expound that on that topic more maybe tomorrow. Another thing that I found out is that the quality of music is just as important as the lyrics. The quality of the music is as important as the lyrics. So is that coming? The quality of the music is as what? Is as good as the lyrics. So music is not neutral. Music is not neutral. There is good music and there is bad music. So that's what I'm saying. So you don't say that music is neutral. So the universal language does not take sides. Music takes sides. So it's not neutral. There's another point. I will expand on that more as the days go by. Then another thing that I found out is that I do not believe that we can only sing hymns. I didn't find anything in my study that says that Christians or Seventh-day Adventists should only sing hymns. I didn't find that. But what I found is that there are some very appropriate praise songs that can be composed even as I'm speaking right now. So that point has been a bone of contention, where people elevate hymnals from the Seventh-day Adventist church hymnal more than songs that have been composed by Seventh-day Adventist members. So then the question shall be, did God stop inspiring people to compose, to write? So that's a question also. So, but in my study, I find out that whereas as a church, we can sing as many songs as we can only be guided by the principles of good music and the principles of how the church teaches about music, and we can only learn the art of composition from the hymnals. If you heard that, say amen. There's a lot to learn from the way the hymnals were done, so that we can improve on the quality of the music that we do. So we are not in this convention to advance the narrative that it's only hymnals that are supposed to be sung. So that is from the study that I was, because you gave me that task, and I didn't disappoint. I went and researched. Then the last thing, because I'm finishing there and I'm rushing to preach, I'm just laying the foundation. I believe that the music that God would have us, would have us use in worship is transnational, it is transcultural. God does not have different genres of music in heaven. There is only one type of music where? In heaven. So it does not have one type of music depending on which planet the music was being sung, from which continent. So music has a heaven has a music style that all the beings of the universe should use. Now that one should also, and so I believe that the music that God would have us use in worship is transnational and transcultural. It transcends our cultures, it transcends our nations, it transcends our continents. So because it is guided by the principles of heaven, and there can only be one heaven and one style of music, that is heaven. So that is the last thing that I found out from the research is that there is much that where much is given. See, that's an English statement, you know. Where much is given, much is expected. So God expects higher quality of music from individuals who are professional musicians. So singers who are here, and I believe most of you are singers. And mna kibarua kizito. The church depends on you. God depends on you. So if the church is experiencing and having music that is not elevating, music that is not moving people, then God is expecting something from the people that He has given that talent to. So to whom much has been given, much is what is expected. So we the singers, because I'm also a singer, I'm a writer, I'm a composer, and a trainer. So much is expected from us. If the church will fail in terms of music, then God has people He will blame. And the people are seated in front of me here today. So to whom much has been given, much is expected. God expects higher quality of music from individuals or professional musicians than the common church members. They depend on us for music. So because why? I'm saying this because they may not have knowledge of the components of music theory. They don't know anything. They don't know about harmony. They don't know about melody, and they don't know about rhythm. But we know. You tell my mother about lyrics, you'll think I'm speaking about a certain animal, maybe from Jupiter. So, but to people who know, they know what lyrics are. They know how do I balance between harmony and rhythm? Then what should take precedence in a song? Is it melody or something like that? So we're going to look at those things. And so to whom much has been given, much will be expected. So those are the things that we shall be looking at as we shall be advancing this thing. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, that Lucifer was a leader of the heavenly choirs. Because there is no, I also learned this, that there is no, in heaven, there is no one choir. There are several choirs in heaven. That is why even the policy of our church is it encourages the church to have as many groups, as many choirs as possible. So he was a choir leader. So we must all know about the power of music. So I want to say this statement, and then I will end it here so that I come tomorrow for more on what I've said. Now listen to this. We are dealing with an enemy who is the master of the game. He's the master of the game. Nobody, of course, apart from Christ, nobody knows music more than Lucifer. But he is not Lucifer anymore. He is the enemy of God's people. So he knows what good music is, and he knows what bad music is. So we must all know the power of music. You never, ever, even in the wildest of your dreams, underestimate the power of music. Never, ever underestimate the power of music. Music causes emotional reactions. Music is so powerful. I think Timo and his team said even in their field, when they are doing their thing, they use music therapy, isn't it? Yes. So music can be that powerful, but Timothy and the group will tell you that it's not every type of music you play to somebody who is mentally disturbed. Am I saying the truth? Ama nimekosea Timo? And not every type of what? Music. There is music that elevates. There is music that debases. There is music that elevates the soul and the mind, cools down the nerves. Like my father, every time they had a quarrel with my mother, yes, they used to quarrel. So don't look at me like you have never seen your mother and father quarrel. They quarreled. I also quarreled with my wife. In fact, we even quarreled before I came. So when they used to quarrel, my father was a very good lover of rumba. So we used to know. I being the firstborn used to know whenever I see him switching on na natafuta station anaweka rumba, najua hapa kimeumana. He wants to calm down his nerves. And ikisikiliza rumba vizuri, then he starts pole pole anaanza kuongea, then he comes back. The nerves are cold. And so music is very powerful. So never ever underestimate the power of music. That's why the church in handling music fanatics. We have people in our church now these days who are music fanatics. We are trying to handle them with a lot of care because we know how powerful the influence of music can be in their lives. So, like for example, how many of you love watching movies like I do? I've watched millions of movies, by the way. hundreds of thousands of movies there. So, there is a movie cannot be complete without, music. Music has to be there. It has to be there. It sets the stage. If they want to create a mood of suspense, they look for music that creates exactly that mood. If they want to scare you, they'll give you some music that is, is scary. For example, if you watch movies we call horrors and thrillers. Hii lazima ukue kuna roho ngumu kama yangu. Ndio uweze kuona. They are very horrific, and don't watch them at night if you are mtu wa kuota ovyo. But for example, for those who have watched horror movies, you see the kind of music that is there, right? It's also what it's scary. It makes you anticipate something bad is about to happen. So that is how powerful music can be. And when people want you to, the watchers, if you're watching a movie and their aim was to capture your emotions and your feelings, they give a scene and then they will accompany it with some music that makes your emotions reveal themselves. So that's why sometimes when you find people watching some movies, the actor is crying and then there's a certain music that is accompanying, you start crying also and they are acting. So that is how powerful music can be. So if you're watching a terror movie, they accompany the general music that will bring out terror, that will scare you, make your body jump out of your skin. Is that what you say in English? I'm a Swahili teacher, I don't know these things. So music does have, by the way, psychologists will tell you that music does have a deep psychological impact, especially to young people. So that's why we are very careful when we're handling music, and we also trying. So let me quote a statement here and then I finish. The art of sacred melody was diligently cultivated in the schools of the prophets, in the Old Testament, for example. You would not get flippant songs that should